rolled around to 2 p.m.
Start the live.
Open our meeting. Welcome to our mutual members who are present in our chambers, and also to those people, including the public and watching the stream or listening to the event. We're starting off today with a public forum, and we have three members of the public who are speaking to us. Shona Ray from Mini Golf, Reese Smith from the Cromwell Youth Trust, and Megan Phillips from the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust. So welcome to you three. We'll start with Shona. So welcome, Shona. You're all ears.
Right. Thank you for letting me talk to you. Now, excuse me, I've been running the mini golf for almost 19 years, and I've been seeing many plans and changes in the surrounding area during that time. Mini golf is a family-priced activity that is drawing increasing numbers. In the holidays I've just finished, I've had 165 locals, 91 from the surrounding area, that's the Central Lakes and CODC, and 135 from the South End. There are also many from further afield. I also get groups from far and wide, Timaru and Christchurch, plus local staff dues and this holiday program and school camps. The prices I charge are affordable compared to some of the other activities in the area. Cromwell Mini Golf fits well in with the other activities in the area, and we draw customers off the highway, and this benefits other businesses in the town. Is verified by a letter of support from Subway. I think the main reason that pulls people off into any town are toilets, food, and shopping and activities. I was part of a group that opposed the building of an ice site in the middle of the current car park about 10 years ago. My argument at the time was that people were booking their accommodation online, and so the ice site income would fall. This has proved to be true. I would think that 95% of the cars passing through the highway now have at least one smartphone on board. Technology has made exploring our area very much an online affair. Putting a World of Difference park won't bring income into the town, as we already have the big fruit providing many photo opportunities. Currently, Tourism Central are conducting some surveys and workshops to help develop a strategy for future tourism in our area. Please take this into consideration before making any decisions. The new lease of at least 10 years can't be made. It is putting the business of our investment at risk. The mini golf is in good condition with major recarpeting done about 4 years ago. I've received many compliments about the cleanliness and the design of the course. Thank you.
Thank you, Shona, for your presentation. Do any of our members have any questions for Shona? Thank you very much, Shona, for your time today.
Thank you.
Next, we have Reese, who is our youth worker for the Cromwell Youth Trust. Welcome.
Hey, thank you everyone for your time. I hope you all are quite aware of what we do, so I don't want to have too much of a repetition for you all, because I'm sure you've read our reports and an overview. So I guess I want to put it to the board if they have any questions about our application, or if you would like me to clarify anything in particular about Cromwell Youth Trust and our role and what we do and why we feel our application would benefit our young people.
Reese, we know that the Cromwell Youth Trust does a superb job, and it seems to have grown quite exponentially in the last couple of years. So how many, you remind me, I know it's in the report, but how many youth workers are you currently working with?
I'm sorry, Anna, sometimes you cut out a little bit. Was your question how many youth workers we currently have?
Yeah.
So currently we have 3 full-time employed youth workers, and we have 2 roles advertised to increase it to 5 by the end of the year.
What funding have you already got in place for those additional roles that you've already advertised?
One role for a youth counsellor has been confirmed for a multi-year contract through Orangutan Mariki, fully funded. One role is being supported by the Tumanua Sporting Fund for our mentoring, mentoring program. That's partially funded, but majority. Central Lakes Trust supports our salary funding as well, and we have changed our financial year from to January to December, starting from next year. So
those two roles you've got on there at the moment would bring you to 6 staff.
no,
Right?
so in the time of the application to now, we've been able to get a little bit more funding to support these full-time roles, and yeah, so we're waiting on the application from CLT to come through in the coming months for confirmation of next year's funding for a multi-year fund.
So is this application that you've got to the community board, is that for an additional staff member on top of those you already have advertised, or is that part fund one of the positions you've already got advertised?
We would hope it would support employing somebody that we're currently advertising for, based on some changes over the last couple of months since putting the application in.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does anyone else got questions? Sorry, I completely hogged that moment. Okay, thank you so much for your time, and
thanks, guys.
for the work you do. Thanks, Megan. Welcome.
Kia ora, guys. So a little introduction about myself. I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust. So I came on board in May. In March, we received some funding from Jobs for Nature LINZ, which really helped push our trust to get more involved in the community. I've noticed since starting my role and getting out and meeting groups and stakeholders, and once you meet one, you meet another 3 and then another 3. And straight away, I realized that there's so many passionate people out there, and there's so many great ideas and projects that well-established groups and trusts want to do, but also just local individuals and classes in the schools and everything. And I saw that they were all fighting and struggling with the exact same thing, which was funding for tools. You know, just those basic things that enable and empower them to do the work. And all I could think of was, well, why don't we create a community toolshed so that it's kind of cutting out that initial stage of trying to find funding and applying for tools and everything, and just speeding up the process, and also allowing them to use their funding more effectively, because they're not having to worry about that. And I think it's a really, really beneficial thing for the community. You know, for example, I don't know if any of you guys went to the Connect Cromwell Winning Ideas thing a couple of weeks back. So many of those groups have got so many great projects, and they're all applying for, well, a lot of them are applying for tools and things. And I think from a social point of view, it's very important, because it's empowering all people from all walks of life. It's empowering more involvement, more ownership of the land. And from an economic point of view, it's probably actually quite beneficial for people such as yourself, community grants, which are constantly getting applications for kind of the same thing. A lot of them are for tools and things, and it's probably more cost effective to have something already set up for them that's unbiased and just managed by our trust. And we see ourselves as bringing together the needs of the communities and stakeholders to create a better environment, create projects, and keep that community spirit and engagement to our environment alive. And I think that a community toolshed is really important for that. You guys are aware of the project that we're doing along Lake Dunstan. And this would empower some of our volunteers to do it, but it is a separate thing. Our trust has got our project, but we've got many other things. We're working with the Junior Guardians. They're creating a project. We're speaking with the Cromwell College actually straight after this. And there's loads of other different projects that we're all working with and we're aware of that all need the exact same thing, the community tools. So I think it would be really beneficial for the community. And just an update on your guys, because you've got all the information there. The permission, the consent for the land, we've been told by Linds and Colliers that they will look into it once, if and when we get the funding, and it would be in McNulty Inlet between the kind of where the campsite and Mokihi nursery is and by the toilets there, because it's a very easy accessible place for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Megan. Has anyone got any thoughts to make about the presentation? Thank you so much for your time. And
my apologies.
right home. So now that we've done our public forum, we do need to move the apologies that we had for today. So we've had apologies from Police Chief for being seen. That's okay.
Would have been fine if I forgot my mask and had to go back and get it.
And I've also received apologies today from Nigel Finley and Tony Buchanan. I had a move that and a second for those apologies. Thank you, Berna, thank you, Cheryl. And then we need to move to page 7 of your agenda for the implementation of the minutes. Yeah. Oh, Berna, I've got people missing. Be with me. In favour. And that takes us to our declarations of interest on page 15. Just to remind you in the appendix that if you have a conflict that you need to prepare it and stand aside from discussion with decision making, and you can hear it at that time. Do that.
Draw your attention to page, what is that? 17, just going to Lake Dunstan, all the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust. Big room. I want to stay at it. I'm happy with it.
I have a conflict in the same item. But
On the Lake Dunstan part of it,
yes,
that's not some charitable trust.
yes. In a situation where no matter what I do, I could have it used against me in my day that work, but I can stay in the room.
Oh, I love your governance people.
I can stay in the room, you've got a quorum, I just don't vote.
Okay. All right.
Mine's a perceived conflict.
Yeah.
I'll check all that.
And I want to see if it really doesn't need to leave the room either. They have it.
Yeah, you're in the same.
Okay.
But I will be able to maybe ask some questions that might be helpful if you want some other information.
Okay. Thank you so much for that offer.
Your idea.
Right home. So that takes us to page 18 and the community grant application, and we have that for the people prepared for it. So what we would like to do, ladies, and I know that it became you'd like to consider the Lake Dunstan Charitable Chapter separately, so that we can conflict and site and that discussion before we go to be involved in it.
Okay, shall we just run you through a few bits before we get to that point?
That'd be great.
Cool. So this is our first contestable funding round for this long-term plan. And so it's really the first, I would say it's the first one we've really had since the new grant policy was adopted in 2019, which is great because it's given an opportunity for other applicants to come forward and ask for larger amounts of money than would have been available through the community grants round previously. The process for assessing that is by using the matrix which has been supplied, and the information that I have is the information that's supplied in the application. So sometimes some applicants give a lot of information, some applicants don't give so much. I ask questions where I can, but ultimately I have to assess it based on what's been provided. So my recommendations are based on that. They're not subjective. I have my own opinions, but they're not part of this process. I just want to make that clear. We did invite applicants to apply for up to 3 years of funding, and through the process realized that actually we're going to need to review this policy before the next funding round. And so it's recommended that we only fund 1 year at the moment and hold off until that review process happens. And then applicants will have to reapply again in the next round, which will open in March. Anything else?
All right, so I will have further notices out while we discuss the application from the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust for $88.44.
They had a lot of quotes. So they did a very thorough job of getting quotes for every single thing they would like to include.
Any further information other than what's on here that
Just what was discussed by Megan about, so she sent me an email yesterday from Lynn's, and so they're talking about the location of where it would go and how long it would stay there for. And so then I asked Megan, well, what's the plan? If you only have this Lynn's funding for 4 years, what's the plan? And she said that the trust would anticipate that the community toolshed would be an ongoing project for the foreseeable future, and it's not directly linked to just this Lynn's project funding, and is for all groups to enjoy in the area for the future, which is what I had understood from the application, but I just wanted to clarify that with her. And so the current Lynn's project finishes in 2025, and then they would continue to look for funding to carry on with other projects in that space.
So this is the $1 million that they got from Lynn's.
Yeah.
They complete the project. They can't pull on this project.
No, it's targeted funds to pay people to carry out specific work. So no, they can't use it for this project.
Similar question about time.
yeah, so yeah, that's that.
Yeah, you can.
Like all of those grants are very, very that I explained about.
Yeah, so it says in the application, yeah, it does explain that they can't use those funds for this. It does have a specific targeted project that it has to be used for. So this would be in addition to that. But what they can do is use the resources available through those funds, through the paid staff, to help coordinate the use of the community toolshed to get it up and running and facilitate groups to come in and use it, create a booking system and all that stuff.
And the recommendation is for full amount. And that's quite a significant portion of the amount of money that we have to grant in this round. Is there a reason that we're just thinking that this is a project that we should give the full amount to, or that there aren't other organisations that may also support it?
Yeah, look, there may be other organizations that would support it. I don't think there's any reason to think otherwise. I've recommended the full amount because it aligns really strongly with the assessment matrix. And I had no reason to recommend otherwise. It was a good application and very detailed, wide community benefit, really well planned, very clear.
You know, hang on a mention about when the community toolshed, how they're going to manage the security of that and.
Yeah, that's up to them. I mean, they do have paid staff at the moment to help work all that out. It's not on council land, it's on Lynn's land.
Landed because I know we had to do that placing of containers before and that.
Yeah, so ultimately it's not up to us. It's not our call in that respect. Yeah.
I suppose that's the thing that, you know, it seems like a money, and I suppose the cost of a container is one aspect of that. While we put have we got the breakdown of what they.
Yeah, the application does have the breakdown. I haven't printed that out, but I would recommend that if you're thinking of funding it partially, to consider a portion of it. What would that be, right? So maybe it would be towards the container, for example, or towards the tools, or yeah.
You know what the budget, not.
I know. Yeah.
But it could be a dollar amount, and it could just be saying that that dollar amount will go towards an element, so towards the container cost or towards.
Yeah, that's right. Just specifying so that it's clear for them how it's anticipated that money would be used. Yeah.
I find that quite hard when we're looking at it in isolation from the other items, because it is a significant proportion of the amount of money that we have available. And I know that as we come to some of the items that you may have made recommendations differently, that there may be an appetite in the room for those groups too.
Yeah, that's the bit I've got to say something at the moment when I'm looking at this and to fund the full amount. And I look at it in other items, one particular, and I think, kind of, we are talking a lot of money. We're not going to have a lot share.
Yeah, it's difficult to look in isolation.
Yeah.
And that is the assessment committee's prerogative.
Yeah.
These are recommendations, but it's up to you as a committee to decide how you would like those funds spent.
Then I know that they've been doing great work. I know that the funding that they have accessed and the work that Megan's been doing in liaising with community groups has been invaluable. And I know that they've got real momentum. So I certainly don't want to say that we don't want to support this, but I just am concerned about it. But without actually having off the top of the head what the containers would be.
Well, there should be in the application.
Actually, page 155, 156 gives you the breakdown of the cost, the container and putting the container out. Just happened to have it on that page.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So there's so many that look at all. Yeah. 155 that we said.
155, 156.
1,500.
They relate to the container.
Yeah, to fit it out, but that's to fit out the.
156 is the container cost.
72 for the actual container and another 1,380 to fit it out.
And the balance is for the contents.
Yeah.
How much is needed after, if we were to How much is left in terms of what the balance?
So your total amount available is 49,925. And I have recommended about 25,000 in funding, which would leave you around 25,000 in the balance, and keeping in mind we have a second funding round in March as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
So the container and container fit out on my rough calculations is 8,580.
I'm wondering if, because by the time they've got the consent to place the container, put the container in, do the fit out of the container, they're going to be in January of next year by the time they're at that point. I'm wondering if we can look at recommending that they apply again for the balance of the amount to fill it with tools in the March round.
Yeah.
So that we've then got, we've got a little bit more flexibility now to think about what we've got to play with. And also we know that there's another round this time of the year next year.
Yeah, and I suppose they're in a tricky chicken and egg with that consent as well. Like the resolution is that the money is dependent on permission and consents, and then Lynn's is saying consents are dependent on funding, so.
Yeah, and I understand that, which is why I'm wondering if the thing that we can say, okay, this might get you over the line for consent or from Lynn.
Yeah.
If you've got a container and you've got the ability to fit your container out, and that maybe there's other funding organisations, or maybe there's another opportunity to come back to us next year for funding for the actual tools to fill the container with.
The balance of what they actually they may be able to fund.
Yeah.
Get a portion of that.
I would imagine there's quite a lot of work to do to get it placed and secure and privileged, and that's going to be volunteer. I would imagine.
That makes sense.
Is there a time frame though to, sort of need to be available or should it be available ideally?
They haven't given any sort of time frame.
I suppose they're still working to a time frame of Lynn, they've got to go through this,
Yeah.
but then they've got to go through a process with Lynn as well.
Right.
So, I think their time frame is probably a bit of how long is a piece of string.
Yeah.
Everybody's processes, take time to come to fruition. Yeah. How are you feeling about that? More positive, you feel, yeah, you feel that?
Yeah, compromise.
Yeah. Right, so that quite a lot of pages. Recommendations. All the way back on page.
That's why I didn't print it out.
Information, so apologies. So we have received the report and accepted the level of significance, and we are considering the application from the late Dunstan Charitable Trust for a community tool shed, depending on their permission and consent from Lynn's, and we recommend to approve
$8,580.
$8,580 for the cost of a container and the fit out of the container. Like very bad number of people. Thank you. Rob, or in favour? Carried.
And I will tell the applicant that you're happy for them to come back in the next funding round.
Yeah, just get that considered out.
Yeah.
There's someone else who may.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Right, guys, shall we go through them one by one now? Yeah, so we welcome Vernon back into our meeting and Neil back into our meeting. So, the first one we have there is the Central Otago Motorcycle Club. Comment that you want to make?
Not really. I suppose if you look at the matrix, you can see that through the information that I have been given, there's not a lot of clarity around the project, as it were. So what exactly the club does, how many members there are, these kinds of things, which is why I've said that the project is not well defined. So that's based on the information that has been given to me. Given that there's quite limited funds and it's quite a substantial amount of money, it didn't align well enough for me to feel confident recommending the full amount, and I was hesitant to recommend any partial amounts because it is on council land, and I don't know if the group would be able to get funds from other sources to pay for renting council land or not, but yeah.
Neil?
There's a bit of history with this. Yes. First thing is that your recommendation based on our grants policy is bang on. It doesn't fit. But the problem we've got here is this is not actually about a grant. This is about the Cromwell Endowment Fund and the Cromwell Endowment land. When this motorcycle track was set up, it's on endowment land. The requirement of that endowment is for be used in the aid of borough funds or some words like that, I think, from memory. What that actually means is hard to say. For many years when we first set it up, we didn't charge any rent. But then someone said the accounting rules, I think it was, or in the endowment, so they said, well, you can't give it for nothing. So it's got to be at market rent or it can be any rent you want. But what we simply did as a board was said, well, we'll rebate the rent back by way of a grant, so they don't pay. The reality is that the land at that stage was doing nothing. We had a huge problem in the community with people, young people, especially on motorbikes, riding where they shouldn't have been. Now, where we end up with this was a problem in getting there. That got sorted pretty much. And so that's why the board set that in place. That's why the lease that they've got says that it's basically rent free. So I think this is a classic case where I don't think this relates to a grants policy. And if it does, then the grants policy should recognise these sorts of things. In the past, we used to always put it in and out into our annual and long-term plans. I'm assuming that's, if it's not still there, it should be. And if it's not, well, tough. But I don't think this should be a subject for grant. This should just be an in and out against the cost centre in the aid of borough funds that we zero the rent out. So I would recommend that actually we follow the recommendation. But and then say that this should be done by way of a grant, well, not a grant, I've stopped using the word grant.
Rebate.
A rebate, thank you, at least rebate from the Cromwell Endowment Fund.
So there's obviously been a change to the way that this lease is being handled. In a situation where they have for the first time been sent an account for $23,000, which they probably weren't anticipating.
They knew it was coming, and they knew that this was the process. We did talk about it quite a bit, but ultimately, they don't have enough money in their account to pay.
And we don't have enough money in this contestable grants for us to, or the organisations that are in this situation to be granting them this via this process on an annual basis. So there's something that we have to consider here, yes.
So if you look at the terms of the lease through the chair, it is that they do apply, but not through the grants. They apply for a rent rebate. That's in the terms and in the community board's resolutions earlier. So it just needs to come out of the.
It's just come through in the wrong process, so we just need to work with them to make sure that the right process is followed.
They've misunderstood the process, and we can work with them directly to resolve that.
I think financially, given the journal entry or whatever the process was in the past, we've never actually received any income from this, so it maintains the status quo financially. Would that be right?
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
But we have got, sorry,
if I may, the lease has, the income from the lease has come out of the grants general ledger bucket. So that's why, that's why it's come through in a grants, contestable grants, because it was part of the amount of money that's set in a grant budget pot.
Yeah, and I understand that the whole point of this was so that other organisations like the Lake Dunstan Charitable Trust and these other people who've applied this time have the opportunity to apply for contestable grants.
That's right.
What you're saying is, and what you're saying, Anne, is that we've actually got this in the wrong bucket.
It's not
So let's
contestable.
find the right bucket to do this.
We're contracted to, we are contracted to rebate when they apply for that. We
Right.
do have to invoice because we have to make blah, 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 and then they apply and we, under our resolution, rebate. It's not a contestable grant.
And the logic was saying that you invoice the market rate. And then instead, with those borough funds that I've got, now I'm going to pay it back out, make it zero.
And that's,
And we met the purpose of the endowment. It was much easier when you used
To repatriate, really would pay.
Can't do that. They met the endowment by giving them an invoice and then say, how did that endowment, we're going to pay a rebate for that rebate.
okay, so in terms of the actual resolution that we had in front of us then, which is that from this contestable grants round, that we aren't going to grant any money to them, that's correct, yes?
Yep.
But when we go back to the club, we're going to make sure that they understand how to apply for the rebate, that is part of their lease agreement. Is that right?
Whether I just simply move that we define the application for the grant, full stop.
Yeah.
And to be in terms of the lease between the council and the Central County Motorcycle Club, the rent be
Rebate.
rent be rebated, full stop.
Yeah.
The
original resolution didn't require an application. Oh no, actually did in there, but I think there's a clause in the.
Yeah, it does in the lease.
References back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the lease, it says to apply for a rebate and upon application as per the council community board resolution will be rebated.
So the next thing is they may apply for a rebate, but council shall.
So it doesn't-
They apply, but if they apply, we must.
It doesn't need to come here then either.
No, we just need
Yeah.
to send them an invoice.
Yeah.
They apply for a rebate and then we credit the invoice, which sorts out the GST component as well.
Then you can take it and apply.
Wayne, how you going on that resolution? Sorry, that got all a little bit confusing there. Just get the name, whose fingers are working hard.
So it would be declines the community grant for Central Otago Motorcycle Club to cover the cost of their lease. That's this bit.
Yeah.
Then their rent to be rebated upon application. No, not quite. Just rebated.
The lease payment be rebated in accordance with the lease. Full stop, that's all it needs.
Sorry, say that slower.
The lease payment be rebated.
Yeah.
In accordance with the lease between the Central Otago Motorcycle Club and the council. I think you can safely say you've had the application.
Right, can you read that to us then?
Declines the community grant for Central Otago Motorcycle Club to cover the cost of their lease. The lease payment to be rebated in accordance with conditions of the lease.
Are you happy with that? Do we want to leave that to move with the rest of the items? We've gone through the others.
One question.
Yeah.
Mentioned that they have received the invoice already.
Yes.
So we need to raise the invoice and then upon approving the rebate, which we have no choice, but upon issuing the rebate, we would then issue them a credit note, which locks it out in the system and gets rid of the GST issues. Otherwise, council would end up owing GST and not.
But you've already raised the invoice.
Yep, it's easy. So now we just raise a credit note. Nice and easy, very operational.
Right.
Do the number one.
One by one, okay, so do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Thank you, thank you, Cheryl, all in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Whether the invoice was coded to or credited to.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Speedway has historically been like the motorcycle club on endowment land and have had their lease rebated. And so they were invited to apply for a grant for that, but have chosen to apply for something different, which is why the assessment is different, because they have applied for money to support starting a promotions group and money for some maintenance costs and things on the Speedway. And the reason I have recommended a decline is because this is not the correct fund for promotional activities, so they would need to go to the promotions fund for that. And I didn't feel that maintenance costs really necessarily fit within this, and the group had money in their account to carry out those costs. So after they had carried out all of those maintenance costs, if they did not get this grant from the community board, they still had $28,000 remaining in their account. That's ultimately where I landed on that recommendation.
Are they in the same boat as the motorcycle club, however, in terms of rebate for, I know they haven't applied for that.
Yes.
Still information we need to give them, isn't it?
Through the chair, they have this similar clause, except we have to retain 2,000 for a separate account.
So to me, this one here is just simply recommendations bang on. They've got a process, they should go through it.
And again, they have to apply.
Yeah, and I think that in the contact back to the club, exactly what you said, which is this is the wrong bucket of money, please apply to promotions funding for promotions funding for next year. And that hopefully the rebate that they get will cover the other things that they're important.
I suspect they double dip. They have to do that. That's what I do.
So, that we're just going exactly with what the resolution already said for that one.
That's what you need to do.
We need to do, but we just need to make sure that what gets sent back to them makes sense.
Yeah, I understand.
Cromwell Speedway so this is C number 2, Cromwell Speedway for operational expenses that we recommend to decline the grant. Further and seconder.
Or you can do it. So you're going to do them all at once, aren't you?
No, they want to do them one at a time.
Okay.
Sorry, we're just trying to make your job more interesting.
Sorry, who moved in second this week? The Motorcycle Club.
The motorcycle club was Neil and Cheryl. My mover and seconder this time is Verna. All in favour?
Aye.
Anyone against?
Makes sense for different people for these ones because they are different interests or, understanding different.
And I think that was, for those of us who are newer on the board, it's good to get some background understanding of some of those leases saying how that works, so that when we look at it, we go, oh, they're awesome. And then we realise that maybe we're not, maybe it's
That's exactly what I thought when I read the minutes without the background.
Yeah. So that takes us to our next item, which is the Cromwell Youth Club salary costs for a youth worker. And from what Reece explained in his conversation with us in the public forum,
I was listening.
they've actually seemed to have secured some funding for this already.
And they're advertising. Yeah. So no idea how much that is. I mean, I've recommended a decline. This is an ongoing cost, and so that's something for you to consider. And that's what I considered in my recommendation is if you're funding a salary cost, that's something, there's no end point to that with the group, they're hiring somebody to get started on that. And so it depends on the board if that's something that you want to be funding or not. typically, historically, the group have received a small amount of money just to assist with general operational costs, so around 3,500. They've not applied for that. This time it's quite specific to employ one person.
Just through the chair, if I can clarify, there's a letter of support there from me. That was written a year ago for another application. I wasn't aware it was going to come here. Not a problem with it, but it's just not specific to this application. Just know that. I still say they do a great job. Just clarifying that.
And they do a great job, which is why we're trying to clarify the brief when he was saying that they already have 4 youth workers and they've got jobs currently advertised for a youth counsellor and a 5th worker, which would be 6 employees, whether this would be additional to that or whether this is part of that. It seems that they've already made some gains and
Getting part of
some
it.
other funding
Yeah.
for this along the way.
Yeah. That's what I understood too. So that in the meantime, since submitting this, they've obviously secured some other funding, which has given them the confidence to go out and advertise. But he didn't specify how much that was or what the shortfall is. Yeah.
And so we don't know exactly what that shortfall is, and 60,000 is too much anyway, because it exceeds our total that we are able to grant. But I am wondering if there is, that they are an organisation that is has changed so much in the last few years since Reece took over as their main youth worker, and the way he's driven the organisation and expanded the range of services that they provide. I'm wondering if there is an appetite around the table for granting a portion of that cost over because they have actually applied over the 3 years to support them with their shortfall. Well, the shortfall is potentially more than 10 and less than 60. I mean, that is something that we could ask, that, we could go with the declining and then come back to them and say, what is your actual shortfall? Could you apply again in March based on the actual shortfall and cost that you have, so that we've got more current information? My concern at this point with this is that feels like they've moved quite quickly to do anything else.
We do often try and encourage applicants as well to apply in project-based kind of format. Sometimes it's just a bit easier to assess, and then you know exactly what's happening, and it has a start and an end point. So
and they do a lot of projects. So if they apply for something like this, for holiday programs or those sorts of things, would that be?
I mean, we'll accept applications for anything. I was just putting it out there for you to consider, I guess.
The other thing with the salary, though, is you employ somebody, realistically, they have to be on a fixed contract basis, because you've got no guarantee that there's no funding for them to see the year.
Yeah, sounds like the other funding they've been in like 3 or 4 year blocks or something.
The history? This board already supports trusts through the rebate of $8,000 a year. As far as I best remember, we also very well with some other external funding built the extension to the resource centre building in the first place, the housing without. So to me, the question is always going to be the same, that if you've already contributed by providing them with a home, effectively, you're setting the rent for that, for the community supporting that. Is it our place to go above and beyond that? Particularly when it's relating to wages, because you can fix term it short, but then you create an expectation. That always gets tough. Don't think for 1 minute I don't respect what the trust has done, particularly in recent times. It's gone ahead leaps and bounds, and that reflects obviously the people involved, the trustees, and our community as well. But I think it's about saying, well, we might be better placed to look at project-based stuff to make things happen. If you go and look at the other trusts that are around the place, what we might support in different ways, it's usually not in relation to paying someone. So I think again, the recommendation that's been made here is appropriate. It's disappointing as it might be, but I just think it's the right place for us to be in.
I know, so there's a really tricky one. They can apply for, okay, well, I think that from what I'm hearing around the table that we are going with what the recommendation said. And that may be that those ongoing conversations with them that, you know, they may be forward but wasn't project based. So I know that they've done some project based things lately, like buy a van and buy and store their equipment, but might be those sorts of things that we can help them with. The whole notion of funding salaries. So, recommendation 3. Youth trust salary costs for a youth worker that we define for 2021, 2022, 23 and 23, 24. In favour? Against? We have already looked at the Dunstan Charitable Trust and we have agreed to a partial funding at this point to help them get to the point where they can apply for the cost of purchase of the container and the fit out of the container. So the last one is the Cromwell Rotary from London, John House Build Resource Consent.
I think you'll be familiar with the group. I believe they've come to speak to you fairly recently.
It was probably a wee while ago as they were putting in the consent.
Yeah.
They were seeking for us not to charge them.
Yeah.
And that was process-wise, that wasn't a way around we can do it.
That's right. So they've paid it. And I've recommended that they get a grant to be reimbursed for that, basically. Yeah.
From the Lions, that's John's Council, fees requested $4,937 and we need to Thank you. And Cheryl, all in favour? Against?
You haven't spent very much money.
No.
It was the A and B.
A and B.
Approved.
Right, so we're having done it.
You and me.
You. And we all approve it. Thank you. Thank you, very much, but it does come back in March.
That's right, it does. That's right, yes.
And we needed to really, and I think that this is the comment that we made, as we were making the decision for the late Dunstan Charitable Trust, without having thought about those other grants, we couldn't make a decision on that.
That's right. We'll just encourage people to apply again.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
No.
Right.
Or not. It could be.
Welcome, Darren.
So just a quick introduction, because I don't think everyone's met yet. Darren Pinkett, he's joined the project, the property team as a project manager. He's got an extensive wide experience in project management, so welcome to the team. Thanks.
Welcome, everybody, and Your Honour, by your worship, should they?
Your Honour.
That's the wrong way. I'm here today to discuss the procurement process for the designs for the Cromwell Memorial Hall and / event centre, as we're calling it now. I'm here seeking the board's approval for your delegation for the confirmed figures that are in the LTP. I'd rather say that instead of figures, just in case anybody who's looking at possibly going for the tender, here's what we're saying in figure wise. Take the paper read, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything you've got really, please.
Questions for Darren? That's good. Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to say you could ask all the questions, but what for we've been here.
Yeah.
It's now a procedural thing.
Yeah.
When I first read the report, I had some concerns about going, is it coming back? Is it coming back? The report's well put together, answered all my questions, and it's pretty procedural. It's, you know, we don't do this when we're in a spot of bother.
It's just that, well, the thing is, if we don't agree to it, it's just the fact that we could delay the process a little bit longer. It could go into the January and stuff, and with the way that the current market is, we want to try and seduce someone as soon.
What was it we heard? Get on with it.
That's it.
We
did highlight it in the report. Get on with it, so why not?
You think they made a difference?
I'm here, Anna.
But from the advisory group, we discussed that usually in this procurement policy, it doesn't have a lot of say, so actually we've got more policy in it than we would normally. Yeah.
And I really hope that when we assume this is approved, I'm sure it's going to be, that some of the people in our community actually take the time to inform themselves properly and read what we're doing, not cast wild aspersions about what people have said that they never said, and what actually is happening, and not what's happening in their la la world that they live in.
I admire you still have that tenacity after so many years. Well done. It's not struggling.
We live? Yeah.
We can have a chat.
Thank you for coming.
No, I mean, it's good because people just need to say, obviously, if you want to know the truth, ask the horses out.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you. Don't make it up. I'm certainly going to accuse elected members of saying things that were in the supposed minutes that you'll never find because they're not.
Mm-hmm.
And this is us doing our job as we've been charged with doing.
So this is something that we, I think this is exciting. Really get the ball rolling. So recommendations A and B, that we receive the report and accept the level of significance. B, that we approve appropriate delegation of authority to council to executive for awarding the Cromwell Memorial Hall Event Centre design tender with the previously approved budget $2,200,000. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Cheryl. All in favour? Right.
Thank you, everyone. It was nice to meet you all.
Yeah,
They won't always be
Right this way.
He's going to get all the glory out of it.
Right, you know that. 187 to our 2022 meeting schedule. 2022 seems a long way off still, isn't it? Fairly straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
The recommendation is that we accept it, that we receive the report, accept the letter of significance, and B, that we adopt the proposed 2022 meeting schedule for the Cromwell Community Board. Yes, thanks, Cheryl and Verna. All in favour? We missed the mayor's report last time. You had left the building before I got to you.
Really? Because I was trying to think,
Yeah.
it seemed a long time since I've been here, but when I looked in the minutes, it said I was here.
You were there at the team's meeting that you had, you were touching me to leave.
Yeah, where'd go something? Well, anyway, since the last meeting, because I didn't go back any further than that, I attended the Central Lakes Trust virtual AGM and just was reminded again how very fortunate we are to have great fund and organisations there in the district and its people. I attended a meeting in the Central Otago Tourism Advisory Board in Cromwell, so I sit on that board as mayor, but the remainder of the members are all leaders in the tourism industry, generally from outside of the area. So we've got a former director of Auckland Airport, got the CE of Hobbiton, just people who are, well placed in the industry to give more of a global, probably the wrong word, national look rather than what could become quite insular. So they were on the Lake Dunstan Trail road rode the Lake Dunstan Trail that morning. I was really lucky that I had more than all the but the good thing is that they just think absolute ambassadors for that trail. And I don't know about Cromwell, but I know on Clyde, even last Saturday morning at about 9 o'clock, I tried to get through Clyde and you just couldn't move for bikes and trailers, and it may actually be overwhelming until we sort of get used to the numbers that are going to be there. But just being at a mayoral meeting on last week with South Island mayors and the mayor of a district further north, Queenstown, no names, I was just saying how desperate they are in the tourism stakes. Not what you'd consider a tourism hotspot, or perhaps not you'd consider it a place people would go, but one that had a very diversified economy. And they were saying Auckland being shut down Thursday, and I think that trail that we're not suffering the effect just as much as others are. So well done to the people who put that together. I met the new CEO of Business South. So Business South was formerly the Otago Chamber of Commerce and the Otago Southland Employers Association. So they merged. I was a wee bit disgruntled by the process of the merger and made that public, but Mike struck me as good, and the Chamber in the past, I think, we were treated not even like the poor cousin. We were the poor cousin you didn't invite to Christmas, birthdays, or any other function. But under Dougal McGowan, they really did put an effort in here, and things really started to happen. And it's good to see under Mike, but I think that's going to continue. Yesterday, I attended the Cromwell Friendship Group, another organisation that's changed their name because they were formerly Probus, to speak on the Three Waters reform. Very receptive members who were interested to learn more about these reforms and how it will affect them. It's a complex issue, and I did a presentation before lockdown for an hour and a half at University of the Third Age, and still I probably covered it in an hour and a half, so you're trying to do it in 20 minutes. It's phenomenally complex. And yesterday I also had coffee and chats in Cromwell, Bannockburn and Terrace. Quite quiet actually. There were people taking up the opportunity, but no major drama, so I can only presume everyone's happy and everyone's given up.
How long have you been in this role?
5 years. 1 week and 4 days. But yeah, so and the same in Alexandra, and nobody in Alexandra, one person implied, and I think that just the happened to see me. But look, they come in waves, you know.
Only one in Clyde. You didn't have a big line up the door.
Well, they couldn't get in because the roads were all shut. Yeah, no, Clyde's getting a little bit over the roadworks, but yeah, they realised one of the lead hoteliers out there said to me, "You can't make an omelette without breaking some eggs." It'd be nice to see the omelette forming a bit more. But the biggest issue they've got is that they can't seal while it's still freezing. So hopefully we'll see that moving forward soon. Happy to take any questions, but other than that, that's me. Pleasure.
I'll move the meeting. I'll move the meeting.
You'll move it. Chair has seconded it. We are all in favour of your report, I'm sure.
Thank you so much. I don't know what you do if you don't.
No, I don't know what we do if we don't. What happened there?
Nothing.
Governance people.
Just didn't receive it.
Righty-ho, so what have I been up to? I had my post meeting interview on Radio Central with Shane on the 8th of September. It's always a chat I enjoy. I'm so desperately early in the morning. I'm sure that Shane and I are just enjoying chat to each other. Nobody else. That's all good.
Right.
6:48. I do a fortnightly column in the Cromwell District's News, and people notice that Tim does one week and I do the following week, and sometimes it's very much about community stuff, and sometimes it's just about our community and what's going on, and just talking us up and thinking about how great Cromwell is to live. On the 13th of September, we had that team's meeting. We've got that update. Christchurch International Airport. I'm sure. And that on the 15th of September, I attended a youth trust meeting, and they have got some really great stuff going on, and they are being quite successful in lots of them. things that they're applying for. I know that one of the things they've done over the last couple of years, the youth centre itself, the hangout, if you haven't been in there for a while, it's looking fantastic. They've spent a lot of time and energy with community support on upgrading the facility. I know that they are very keen to be part of the conversations about what happens in the town centre, because they really want to be part of the resource centre. They can expand their operation or to find another place that will enable them to do the things that they want to do. So they're looking at some things like buying a portable speaker and projector to be able to do outdoor moving, and a multi-use trailer, and they've recently got a container for some of the equipment that they use for some of their lecture activities. There are some really interesting. On the 20th of September, I went to the Dead Trust meeting. They are very excited about the invitation to be part of a stakeholder group for the project, because the project runs alongside of that. They're a little bit worried about the speed of the project because it's got the, there's been a lot of talk about what's happening with the hall and not quite so much talk about what's happening with the museum. So they're scrambling to go on road trips and look around other local museums. So they've got a fabulous road trip planned. In fact, I missed their meeting last night. They've been on a road trip. So, but yeah, they're very excited about that. And their paper beetle display, we've been waiting years for this paper beetle display. They had the relevant okay from DOC to have a paper beetle. The case and the beetles are arriving this month, so you will get a chance to see one. The community should be there in droves so that we can all say we have seen a beetle. Highlight of the Cromwell summer. So they're a great group. They are a very forward-thinking group, for a group that's busy looking after our heritage industry, is what I would say. On the 11th of October, I spoke to Rotary. They invited me to come and have a talk about what we're doing and what we're up to. So I related the things that have come out of the long-term plan back to the work that we did with the master plan. So, yes, we spent all this time and energy on the master plan. And look, now we're at that stage of just coming to fruition in this project. They're coming along. They were a great group to speak to. If you get invited to them at any point, maybe take up the invitation. They feed you and provide you with a glass of something delicious. And they're very, very hospitable. They're a great group. And on the 12th of October, we had our formal project advisory group meeting. We've got the report list in there. What Gareth has told me is that we will start meeting much more regularly as we go through this RFP process, and we've got an architect to work with it. We will be amping up the regularity of meetings. And then just a side note, I'm having real difficulty managing my commitment to the Cromwell District's promotion group as their liaison. Their meetings usually clash with schools, friends school meetings, which is our PTA, and obviously that's a work commitment for me, and I can't not attend those. So if there's anybody else who would be quite keen to take on that liaison group, I'm sure that they would appreciate them. Let them down a little bit as a liaison.
Take over that.
Yeah, if you'd like to, they're a really lovely group, and they do some really, they're a great group to go along to, because they've always got something that they're working towards, so they've got some interesting stuff. If that's the case, then Wayne will do the business. Meaning he will contact them and they will contact you. Yeah. And I will contact them personally and thank them for the opportunity, but that clash, it tends to be the same thing every month for most of it. So that, all right, that's me. I'm going to move mine and second it, yes. I'll move that. Seconder. Thank you. Verna. All time I report. There you go.
That was me voting in favour.
I'll declare my report.
No, that's a lucky move.
Thank you.
So I was at the museum last month, and unfortunately,
Yes.
they've been advised that they may not be able to find it, so they
So it is true, no one can buy one.
They've just got here for that enrichment. That's something that they've started looking pretty soon, as they've got everything ready. How's that accommodate?
They can put any old beetle.
It's anyway from the weekend.
My duty was to take the Beatles, their production was the Beatles, the top of the Beatles, a few years ago, all based on Beatles music, and then trying to find a new home because of the effect. So they were anticipating 2 years ago that they were going to get the Beatles in the museum. Been waiting.
And not ask some of the residents. About it on road, because I understand a few taking up residence on the other side of the road.
You think that's actually.
I don't think you will have to go and actually pin one to a board.
No, this is a whole, this is a live.
Yes.
Oh, it's real.
Yeah, it
Oh, it was really. Really good bit it was.
Right.
Oh, yes, it's sorry.
Yes, and you're right, the trustee about. And they're also experiencing visits. Nice, I think. One of the primary thing.
Oh.
So. Yeah. Then I'm looking at tonight, the Charitable Trust. The trust is continuing the work that they got on nature funding. So just sort of being launching and stuff. And then on the 30th of the 9th, one more hand, really liked it, which was like the Dragons Team. There were 11 groups that came and presented their there were some dragons there that they had to deliver. So Karen Gallagher was there, Jesse Sullivan, Wally Sanford, and Dean Christians, who scrutinised their ideas heavily. And there were some pretty good ideas that came through, like key stations. The kids from Cromwell wanted to collect up driftwood and make it a sculptor, and an artist would help with that. Community needs updates proposals around that. Proposals around the tools, funny enough, and parts, Mocky illustration trust to their tool parts. Maybe quite a good night, just a bit unusual way to get people's ideas out. Immediate scratches, passion. But it's the dragons that give money at the end of the night. It was quite cool. And then other points of interest, plan change 410, which is plan change. They had private court mediation. So it's just sort of process. Times in the last while, people have been raising point parking. Success is now putting us in the bum.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Rodents, well, James will be here later on, they've been working really hard.
That's been my response.
Yeah, selfishness of people. You're right to park over, it's right, but I haven't heard for a wee while that's been happening, but it's.
Yeah, it's quite a pigeonhole road goes up, there's a place, it's actually private, it's not, it's like it's private, but it's not. Yeah, so
There's a business opportunity, large on Cromwell and Corners Point. You made there. Yeah. There's some coming right, maybe 51 weeks. 3 days.
On the 22nd, so there was a round of the Capital Community Grant applications. We actually had a report on the stages of the 3 reports, which is actually quite good because individual express what is our opinions and our concerns, and it's quite interesting concerns and quite beneficial. But there was a report on the water supply. Around pay, bring it up to the New Zealand 300 of that will be of the upgrade is funded by the there was a report on the recycling cost, which need to increase. There was an update on the 3 bridges that are currently closed area, and they're looking to develop a district-wide strategy. And I was on the dog control policy, which basically there's less public safety complaints, which is good. That'll work. That one. Then I went to the Cromwell Community House AGM. Obviously, it's been resignations and we start the COVID and also there's been they Leanne Fox was there at the AGM, so she the open funding there the operation costs to and Karen Palmer has accepted the role of manager. She will be in take the role. They're sitting financially in a really good position. Senior community bank, and yeah, they have really improved. But that is obviously that sums that come in that will be distributed. But that's huge improvement. It's massive. And also got the funding to do up pantries, which they're going to do. Missed out on painting, which we've been decorating, which we decided that they might be going to their. So they're going to do that. So they are really enthusiastic. They're really pleased to be involved with. Then Bill and I went on a fascinating. We went up full stand and had a look at the Ido, the Hawkmoon and the Ido race. But that was really interesting on the ground and actually their solutions that they consider to would help them out. And I mean, goes out for them because it means that they're reliant on these water schemes
It's amazing being where we were standing, basically down the road. By the base of the American saddle, but you just stay that hill. Yeah.
It was a good, really good eye opener.
The way they built the race, and King Gillespie took us, so it's just such a. He had a metal rod about that long, diamond shaped tip at the end, and to break through the rock, one guy would hold it, I'm not being sexist, as it was, one guy would hold it while the other one hit it, which was bad enough, but as he hit it, he had to twist it with his hand so that that diamond bit would drill in, and then yeah. Then once they got enough of a hole, they'd get dry willow or wet willow, I can't remember, willow, and ram it in the hole as hard as they get it wet. Imagine holding that all day and twisting it at -10. I just can't comprehend how. Last.
I think it's down the moon.
Really?
And just one single hanger and hold yourself.
Yeah.
So, and then on the first, I went to second on the yeah, and then I did the start. Just going into the toilet. People now on the bike trail.
Right.
They really are. They would really like a second.
Whereabouts are we talking?
Yeah, on that old precinct here and the historic precinct.
Right.
Yeah, and it's basically what's happening is it's breaking.
Right.
And they've already put in 3 service calls now to fix twice. So this is going to be So it's just I'm just putting it out there that they would really desperately like to talk about days.
Which toilet are we talking about? The main one? No, the public toilets by the jetty, there's more than just one toilet. There's lakeshore toilets.
There might be 2 there, but one is one of wheelchair access.
It's a standard lakeshore toilet, like the rest of them.
Yeah, but they.
Bad and corrugated iron.
Box standard.
Yeah, if it's breaking, then fix your flipping toilet, council.
Yeah, well,
It's not hard.
I think the thing that the demand is actually.
Funny thing, you normally is running out of toilet paper. Or cleanliness issue.
Hey, they've got people coming with coffee.
Can't be any worse than
Yeah, they come and they all went to the toilet. Off they go, like, so it's just a facility that needs to.
We've got counter, I think.
That's what I say, Garrett's here, I don't know whether they've got.
Verify that.
Yeah, certainly do that, and understand the use.
Well, it's only going to go up.
Then there might be something opportunity.
no more than you get today at the Low Moon Inlet, Low Moon Boat Harbour. The same toilet facility that exists. And now, in Old Cromwell, there is a separate toilet, that's Old Cromwell's toilet. You see behind the shops that you can use, that's the toilet I'm talking about. Well, if there's public ones there, I can't imagine that many cyclists, there's any more than a big crowd at Low Moon on a day. That should be able to handle it, but it's not on a waste. Both of schemes on, so it's got got a pump station to pump back in, it all drains into here, so cost an arm and leg to build the flipping thing.
So maybe that's, is it the old Cromwell toilet that's the problem?
Well, the council would.
Council. Okay.
Haven't quite.
Say the council is just thinking about where that you go past.
Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah.
But I can find out because the toilets.
All those cyclists at 200 metres just upstream, but there's another set of public. Same on the dive.
Yeah, if we had the data.
Yeah. You said to them that actually. Yeah. They'd be complaining about the constantly. So, we can check those. Yeah. Yeah.
So we just put counters on all the toilets to get an idea of what's going on.
Yeah, okay, I think I'd appreciate it. But, so they're thinking that they may have to, cancel the one food festival. Concept. There's also there's been damage done to the hill down there. And so we'll see that. Yeah, and you're getting professional photos of so that they can promote it to the. Really. I do all of the letters.
I think the 13th September was a Christchurch update. Didn't tell us anything, it's not in the paper anyway. And then as Cheryl just said, it was a council meeting on the 22nd of September. Did you do the museum function one?
No.
No, so yeah, we've agreed to the path forward for the district museum function. These some money that we have in our budget being used to trust. Going forward, you wish you might have a better recollection of exactly what we're doing, but since trust going forward, looking at that option.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the big thing is sector led, so it's led by the sector.
Will be a trust.
And it'll be a trust, so which is good progress. The Three Waters reforms project you didn't touch on, your worship.
I touched on them.
Yeah, did touch on it. Yeah.
Just.
So we gave our feedback through that process, and we'll wait and play the breath about what's going to happen next. In the meantime, a whole lot of other people are doing some really good, making some strange decisions about what they should do now before they've got the full picture of what's going to actually happen. And I'm defense that this council, we're supporting anything that's wrong because we're not. Just ask the question and try to find out we can make a decision. So I can't believe other intelligent elected members have gone in paths that they've gone.
Rejecting being involved in defies belief. As soon as you can draft them up on the final product, just yeah, disappointing.
Yeah, a couple of road stopping reports that we went through. We had our annual. This is the best one of the best reports you to get is the dog control policy and practices report. Yeah, tells you how to get your dogs. I mean, one of those things that council and local government are involved in. You have to wonder why do we have to do. Well, sense. Good thing is that the Cromwell Town Centre project structure was approved. And who did we appoint? The Minister of Conservation requests are approved for easements and stuff. The budget carryovers that we had left were also approved. Made a change to our hearings panel alternates, so that Councillor Penny is now a member to the hearings panel, and Councillor Jeffrey is also now, what will be soon, an alternate chair of the panel. That's about the other ones that Cheryl will pick up on. And otherwise, I had a hearings panel meeting last week on the 4th of October where we heard the application for the demolition of the Manitoba Old status of that building. It required a consent, so the hearings panel heard that. So, possibly tell you what we decided. The recommendation made a lot of sense. And the also was the thingy station attracted a huge number of submissions, a petition, and that decision is pending. And then apart from that is my weekly radio central discussion with Shane. He sometimes hasn't set me up the file like he does to someone else. Tuesday, usually.
Yeah, sent out branches, and he, or have I just been too dim-witted to notice?
He dropped you out last week about the data centre.
About what?
That's
Oh, yeah, that's just normal. I just don't.
that's about it for me. Sorry, Wayne, I didn't do it in writing either. I just didn't get around to this. So, thank you.
Okay. On the 20th of September, I attended. Came up with that engine was the possibility of maybe moving from their existing location. I subsequently had a discussion with and I think they are going application to the council. Attended via Zoom the Centre of District Council on the 22nd of September.
No, we can't see who's watching.
I also attended via Zoom the Information Trust AGM on the 22nd of September. On the 28th of September, I had a meeting with the chairman. Race course reserved, and the purpose of that meeting was just to familiarise myself with the facilities, and he wanted to discuss possible future plans for that reserve, and I think there's a meeting later this week. That was the race course reserve. On the 5th of October, I attended the Rover Horse Society here. And one of the subjects that came up there was about the provision of more playground equipment. And I subsequently found out that there are some funds allocated in next year's budget to cover that. On the 11th of January, I've written down here, but it must have been October.
Time travel.
I was involved in the Three Waters with Bill Bayfield, and also on the 12th of October, I think on the 13th. Here I took part in on the Three Waters Reform Programme, which involved those three regional water authorities in Victoria, which was interesting indeed. And that's me, I think.
Thank you, Bob. Nice. Thank you, very second. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you, Cheryl. We'll take a look at the members' report. Carried. Okay, we move on to page 100. Status. Quick to say, yes.
I hope it doesn't matter. There's a question from Bob's made a comment about a meeting with him later this week.
To look at.
First steps in review of the reserve.
Yeah.
Basically, where
Is that involving us?
No, not yet.
No, so we haven't even had a reduction yet.
Oh, so there's no meeting for the board, we just were voting.
No.
That's right, I thought. The meeting, and then Bob, I'm going, I think there's nothing on my calendar.
Yeah, I just mentioned this.
Yeah.
Of course, we have.
So you've got to start a meeting with him.
We've been in this process, so.
We will.
Back to page 198 then, which is the recommendation report we received. Yes, that's good.
Yep.
Okay. So the date of our next meeting and our next future meeting, our final meeting for 2021, is on the 25th of November.
Yes, that's true.
Yes. And to the resolution to expose the public. So the public and foreign parts. Thanks, Bruna, in favour. Thank you, everybody who's attended in the cloud today.
Yes, good enough.
Turn off the light.
Yep.
Have a break.